Network on the 661. I'm here with Ms. Ramirez and Mr. Balthazar, and it's a real honor and privilege to have both of you on the talk show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me.
No, the honor's all mine. Now, people want to know, why do I have two people on the show? Now, that's a good question. I wanted to shake up my format. You know, if I'm interviewing one-on-one people, I know that kind of gets boring after a while. So I was thinking, I want to get comfortable of interviewing multiple people at once. So when I ever do a speaking engagement, I feel comfortable talking in front of a group of people. So you guys are part of the list of being on the tag team of doing the double interview. Next, I want to do a triple interview. I want to do a five-way interview. The more people I interview at once, the more of a impression it's got to give myself, saying, you know, I have the confidence. If I can talk to two people, I can talk to three. And then when I can do a speaking engagement, I can talk to a whole audience without looking like a deer in the headlights.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, with that being said, the first thing I want to point out for our listeners, they can go to the Keith Andrew Network. One more time. They can go to the KeithAndrewNetWork.com. That's also available on YouTube.com. Also on Facebook. Make sure to like and subscribe. Follow us all on Instagram. Our names will be on the bottom of the screen, so we can all get new followers and out of it. And you guys make a new friend out of it. So I make a new friend, you make a new friend. So it's kind of like a win-win situation. Now, for people who want to know who Mr. Balthazar is, the one thing that confused me was, are you a TV host or TV guest?
Oh, it depends on the show, really. So sometimes I'll host a show, sometimes I'll be a guest, or sometimes I'll be behind the scenes as an executive producer. So it really depends on the job. I don't say no to many jobs.
Just wanted to point that out. Now, for people who don't know, you are a TV host / producer. You're a comedian, TV show producer, and public speaker. And I would love to talk to you about a couple ideas. And for my friend Kat, for anyone who wants to know who Kat is, you are a freelance fielder, director, and producer. So what you guys have in common is both of you are producers. One, you work on stage, but you also work on TV, but yet it's in the same area of producing.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
So the first question I want to ask for Kat is see, now I'm nervous because I throw myself into the hot seat. My question for Kat is, I keep asking my last question. I keep saying when I first approached you to be on my show, that's how I end my show. And we're only 8 minutes in. I was like, why am I ending my show this early? But what can you tell us and your fans, what is it like to be a producer? And then, Brian, we're going to go to you, and you can tell us what it's like to be a TV producer and see what are the similarities, what are the differences.
Yeah. So I think the first bit of advice I got when I started doing professional theater and performance, because my LinkedIn is super not updated. So I've since probably produced essentially any sort of performance. But when I first got into professional theater, I was apprenticing with a company called Interact Theater Company. They do really great work in Philadelphia. They focus on politically relevant plays. And the artistic director of that company, pretty much in myself and the other apprentices, first hour of meeting him was just just to let you know, theater is all about moving shit around and moving it back. And that's essentially what producing or making any sort of art is you're moving around numbers in a budget, you're sending out 1,000 emails, you're making sure that artists are coordinated. So I find that is a lot of the nuts and bolts producing. I think a lot of the work I do is in community engaged work. So I am the creative director of an organization called Philadelphia Asian Performing Artists. We are lucky to have a self-explanatory name. but we're a 75-person member collective that is supporting essentially any Asian performer in Philadelphia. But because a lot of these things are like collectively built, I don't do a lot of producing in a way of like, I have an idea for something and then I just push everything forward. Usually it's, I have a question for the community that I am serving. And so from that question is how a lot of the work I do gets made. So it's a lot of like really intentional listening and really reactive sort of work.
No, absolutely. And Brian, what is it on your end?
Well, it kind of depends on the audience that I'm trying to produce something for, but generally in its simplest form is trying to take an idea that hopefully we believe will be entertaining to a group of people. And it may start out as just a 2 or 3 lines of what an idea for a show is, or a segment on a show. And then finding the people that are really great at what they do to help execute it as a team. It's always a very much a group effort, and so many people go into taking something like it's an idea, whether it's a renovation show. I executive produced some renovation shows for HGTV, and so that's a very kind of clear idea of a format where it's, you're coming from a before house to an after house and all the things that happen in between, and then trying to present that in a way that is entertaining to the viewer. Or if it's for a talk show, like trying to find topics that are interesting and buzzy for people that will keep them really wanting to, in respect to television, it's really about keeping them hopefully on the network that they're watching. They really want to, keep them entertained throughout the show, but also keep them on that network that you're broadcasting it on. So there are a lot of steps in between, but I think that's the simplest form, is really trying to entertain people. And like Kat said, moving a lot of things around is absolutely true. The platform may be different, but there's a lot of moving things around, and hopefully, I play a lot of whack-a-mole, figuratively speaking, of trying to put out fires and trying to make sure everything is covered at any given moment. And they're always full of surprises, but it's a really entertaining for me. I really find it really rewarding to do.
No, absolutely. For me, I guess you wouldn't really call me a TV producer. You more like, well, I am a producer in the sense as I produce my own show and everything. And I have, lists of questions. I actually have a book right here that tells you, okay, for an example, trying to think without hurting myself. If you're an actor, what were some of your favorite acting lines? Was there ever a time where you were criticism? And now, because you're a talk show host like myself, I would say, okay, well, I have my acting lessons. Now, how can I tweak that and say, make it towards, being a talk show host? Now, if I had like a wrestler on it, keep the same, all the questions will be the same, but you're only tweaking it to make it more different and more unique. So sometimes I actually do a script, and sometimes I don't do a script. I usually just wing it. But I do want to point out that we are not taking a commercial break, so you guys have as much time as you like. You say anything you want, PG-13. But the first thing I do want to talk to both of you about is because you are producers. And Kat, I'm going to start off with you. You are as I mentioned, producer and a freelance director. Now, if someone came up to you and gave you a project about me, how would you pursue it and go about it? And Brian, I'm going to ask you the same exact question for you as soon as Kat's done.
Project about you. I think I would probably talk to you first to make sure that you knew that was happening. I think it depends on, would the person be talking to me as like a producer or director? Because I think I go about those two paths pretty differently.
Right. Well, what does it mean overall? Say I approached you and say, hey, I know you are a producer and director. How would you go about directing my show or having it to a play?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I think it would start with probably like a sit down meeting with you or whoever was, you or whoever was like, whoever had pitched the show, to be like, hey, why are you interested in taking this to like a live performance medium? What are you what is like the overall goal? Who is your target audience for that? And then from there would probably be like going back to my office, which is like my tiny desk in my room, and figuring out, just kind of like figuring out like the timeline, creating a list of potential partnerships. A lot of what I specialize in producing wise is strategic partnerships with different nonprofit organizations, and different social justice organizations. So usually that's a lot of the work that I do. So a lot of it is going after like what strategic partnerships are going to really help further the mission of your show. I'd also want to make sure that y'all have a really strong mission so that I can like elevator pitch this wherever I need to. And then, you know, looking at the budget, looking at numbers, how much money are you coming in with? How much are we going to have to raise? I think there's a conception that like, I've run into a conception with like some film folks when they've been translating things over to stage, that they're like, this is going to be cheaper. And it's like, no, this still takes money. And there's less money in the performing arts. So it still takes, I think, a significant amount of like fundraising. So we'd have to come up with that plan. And yeah, there are a couple different steps that you would go about it from a producing standpoint. From a directing standpoint, it would be looking at your mission statement, probably seeing a couple runs of your show, assuming that we'd be looking to take this live, and kind of tweaking from there. I see a lot of my job as a director is like listening, particularly when I'm working on work that's already being made or in process, is like listening to what's already been created, and then taking that and just kind of like honing in on whatever the mission statement is and making it as focused as possible on that. Yeah.
I agree with you. You know, you look at something like the Jumbo Book, how they went from on screen to Broadway or making a theater. For perfect example, you look at Spider-Man, you look at King Kong, and I started to laugh, I do apologize, because you mentioned how you take a video, you go into live action, you know, in person. You imagine, and then you mentioned money. Imagine King Kong, you know, it's big because they put a lot of money behind it, this giant gorilla, you know, brave seal and all that. Imagine if they were cheap. Imagine just the most ridiculous, asinine, giant cardboard of a giant gorilla that's coming out. And you pay like good money to go to the theater. You wanted to see this in person, but yet you have this cardboard cutout. It's kind of like, you need to give the people what they paid for. So if they pay good money, you need to make sure you're satisfied. And if you're satisfied, well, that's kind of easy to do, to satisfy yourself. You know, some people say I have a big ego, but you need to give the best product. Now, passing it over to Brian. Actually, I do want Kat to finish it up, then we're going to pass it over to Brian.
Yeah, what I will say to that though is like there's some really brilliant work that I've seen on like shoestring budgets, of course, because artists, I fully believe, can like do anything as long as there's a very clear vision. I think in terms of your show and the product, it would be trying to figure out like what is the budget, and then what is the best version of the show that we can do in the budget. I've seen like really incredible theater versions of the Fast and Furious series, that are essentially done in like warehouses with rolly chairs as a way to talk about like a lot of the internalized misogyny in that movie series. So there are a lot of really creative solutions because artists can do so much. It's just being really specific around, I think it's being really specific around the monetary requirement. And then from there, it helps people get creative in different ways. If you have if you have only like $1,000 budget, you're going to make the Fast and Furious with just rolly chairs. If you have $1 million budget, then you're probably going to try to buy cars. So it depends. It just depends on like, what's the puzzle you're having to play.
Yeah, I agree with you. What about you, Brian?
So I think if I was approach to develop a show about or for you, I think that one of the first questions I would have is, well, what kind of show is that? Is that a documentary about you and your life, which would involve, you know, finding your personal story and mapping out, you know, how you got to where you are today and some of the things that happened along the way that shaped who you are as a person that a viewer will really connect with, empathize with, be entertained by, and find really interesting. And then if it was a talk show, if it was something more current, like something that was regular and frequent, like a recurring show, sorry, motorcycle went by. So if it was something more, it was something recurring and more current, like a talk show, for example, that was not like a scripted or a documentary, the questions would be like, where does that show live? And like, what's the platform that it would live on? Because I think that often is the case. Where, you know, what kind of show you create is based on the audience that is at that particular platform. So like a talk show on HBO at 11 o'clock at night is different than a talk show on ABC at 11 a.m. So, you know, there are different considerations that come into how you produce and how you stack a show based on the guests that you have on and the topics that you talk about based on the audience that is coming to that show at that hour. And in the case of the talk show like that, usually it's something that the network has already expressed an interest in. So, you know, sometimes you're bringing it to them as an idea, or sometimes they're saying, we want to do this show already. So there can be a couple different scenarios. But I think what it really comes down to is really finding out who you are as a person and what has shaped you into the person you are today. And then really playing to those strengths that you have as a result of those things. Because I think the more people can understand who you are as a human being, the more they will feel a connection to you. And I think if TV at its best, and you know, let's be honest, there's a lot of vapid, mindless television out there that it doesn't enrich us, but hopefully a show that enriches us and makes us feel good after having watched it is one that we really connect with the people on the screen and feel like we see a little bit of ourselves or see someone that we want to connect with. And I think that's the kind of show that I like to be a part of if I can. And that when the person who's on that show turns it off after watching themselves say, I'm really glad I did that, and they don't go to bed thinking, oh, I regret having done that show. There are plenty of alternatives to that out there right now. You know, reality television has a lot of examples of people that are behaving at their worst for a level of notoriety, and it's not really what I want to be a part of. So I think finding a story that's enriching and finding something that people connect with, I think, is what I try to get to the root of when I do a show.
No, absolutely. And to be honest, before I did the double interview, I had a whole bunch of questions, but I'm not going to be a jackass about it. Yeah, or I could if I wanted to, but because
you could.
Yeah.
You're allowed to be a jackass. That's all right. That makes it entertaining. just
True, but because you guys are producers, I want all of us to be in the same category and on the same subject. So this episode will be just about producing, and so it's all in our realms. So I'm not going to go off on a tangent about something else, Renner, guys. It would be like, what the hell is he talking about? Why did I agree to be on the show?
I'm very intrigued.
I'm also like really curious now.
For an example, I was going to ask Brian about being a public speaker and being a comic.
Well, comic is relative. I mean, I don't know how funny I am. I rely on people to laugh, but I try and insert humor into whatever I do. I don't know that. I mean, I used to do comedy more steadily, but then I realized, gosh, I don't like working at night. Well, it's kind of hard to do that during the day. Like, not great hours. And the more I get older, the more I want to go to bed at 9:30. So it's not a career that lends itself well to going to bed at 9:30. Nor is theater. I couldn't do theater either. That's like you don't get home until like midnight or 1, right?
Yeah, this is super fair. It depends. I'm lucky in that, like, you know, if you're rehearsing a regional theater process, you can rehearse the 10 to 6, but you've got 3 weeks of those rehearsals. Then you go into tech, and you get out at like 12:30, 1 o'clock.
Yeah, that's hard.
It's It's hard, but I've also, from what I know, TV also has like very incredibly long hours and is like a lot earlier in the morning. And I'm not a morning person. So when I can, I usually request that my workday starts at like noon or 1, and I'll work until however late as possible, but I just don't want to wake up early.
Yeah, I'm with you. I've worked at the Today Show for many years, and I kept thinking, how did I get here? Like, I am not a morning person. I'm not either. But now as I get older, I'm becoming that old person who wakes up before 7 a.m. And I don't know how I got here. You know, we all have that relative that gets up at 5 in the morning and goes to bed at 8. And you're like, you're old. I'm like, oh, wait, that's becoming me. Like, I'm slowly, like my clock is slowly going earlier and earlier. And I don't know why.
You know, for an example, I used to work over at Walmart. And I got tired of working at night because I saw the undesirables come out. And so I was, you'd be perfectly correct. I was like, okay, I'm going to change it to the morning. And they're like, okay, can you be here at 7 in the morning? That's fine. My alarm used to go off 6 in the morning. I'm like, oh, come on, it's still dark out. But it's better I would rather get up early, do what I have to do, and get out.
Yeah, there are not a lot of rabble-rousers at Walmart at 7:15 in the morning, are there? not a lot of drunks, not a lot of troublemakers.
It's true. To me, part of me is like, I like confrontation, but there's a part of me is like, you know, man, I just want to get in, do my job, and get the hell out because I don't want to be here for the rest of my life.
Yeah, particularly like when you've got other stuff you're passionate about too, you want your day job to just be like, I'm here, I can kind of like half turn my mind on, get this done, but also like be able to dream about the things I really want to do.
Yes.
If you guys want to hear why I don't want to work at night, I can tell you the story if you want to hear it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I was last couple months ago, this is like December during the holidays, my boss and me were, okay, so she's my neighbor. So it's like, oh, Keith, you don't want to work late, I can give you a ride home. Oh, okay, yeah, sure, no problem. And, you know, these delinquents came in and started knocking things over. And I was thinking to myself, why am I here? I don't have to right now. I could have easily left at 8. And, you know, I stood back and he got into one of those motorized carts and I lost my temper. I grabbed the cart and I picked it up. And he is like, well, go ahead, hit me. I'm going to make sure I sue you for assault and being up on a handicap. And so he got out of the car. He brushed right past me. He says to my boss, and this is where I said, I'm changing my hours. He looked exactly at my boss and said, you better watch yourself when you go in the parking lot. I'm like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. That was a nail in the coffin. Never again will I work past 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah, that doesn't happen as much as 7:30. I hope.
No,
in the morning.
Don't mind me.
Never a dull moment. Never a dull moment at Walmart at 10:30 p.m.
No, and it's uncensored, freedom of speech, self-expression. Actually, while we're telling the funny, awkward stories, do you have any funny stories you guys want to share from your retail experience?
You want to go, Kat? Do you have any?
I've never worked in retail. I've worked in I worked in restaurants from like 16 to 24. So I have a lot of like serving experience. I'm like trying to think because I feel like I blocked so much of it out. Let's see. I think I worked in a Thai restaurant for a really long time that I really loved working at. And like, yeah, that was really lovely. I remember my last day there. I taught everybody how to play beer pong and they shut the restaurant down early. And we set up like a beer pong tournament for like the full staff. And that was really fun. I don't know if it was like funny necessarily, but like I love all the people at that restaurant really deeply. And I haven't gone back to visit in a while, but I really should. But yeah, I have a lot of really good memories there because like it was a restaurant that had like pretty good takeout business, but it would get kind of slow in the evenings. And so they were usually pretty cool being like, oh, we'll just shut this down and like, we'll drink and we'll have like a family meal. It was a really nice sense of community, but I taught everybody in that restaurant how to play beer pong.
That's fun. Is that in Philly, that place?
It's in Wayne, so it's just outside of Philly.
I know
But
exactly where that is. Yeah. I'm
Oh.
moving to Philly. As it turns out, I'm moving to the Philly area in a month.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay. Dope.
I'll
If you
look
want to,
you up. Yeah, you have to teach
yeah.
us how to play beer pong.
Yeah, but if you want to exchange contact information or need
Yeah.
any tips about where to go, I'm here.
You know
I'd
what's
love that.
funny? I didn't
Keith,
mean
where
to
are you? Where are you,
I didn't
Keith?
mean to
I'm
interrupt.
sorry.
I do apologize.
Where are you at, Keith? I don't know your location.
Oh, New York. Not New York City, more like West Point near Albany.
Oh,
Okay. Nice.
beautiful up there.
But it's funny because you guys, I was just thinking this a while ago. Every time I do a double interview, I enjoy bringing people together. And it's funny that Brian should just mention that he's moving to Philly and you're in Philly. It kind of goes back to like every time I bring two people together, they always connect.
That's so nice. Yeah.
But with that being said, the last question I do want to talk to both of you about is social media. Can social media make you or break you with everything you guys have accomplished in your lives? Do you think your numbers dictate if people should work with you or not?
Well, I think the answer is both. It can make you and it can break you. I've seen examples of people, I mean, truthfully, you can use it in the right way and you can use it in the wrong way. I think a lot of people, first of all, the internet is forever, so treat it wisely and do what you do on social media with that in mind, because you can't really delete Google. And so I know people who use it very well and use it to build their brand and create, when you think of it as a platform for building a business and raising awareness. There was, a time 20 or 30 years ago when people wanted to get the word out about something they were working on, whether it was a play or whether it was their own personal business. They would pay money to get a mailing list, and they would send mailings out to people so that they could get inside their homes with a brochure of some kind. And now you can do that on social media simply by sending something out that helps people raise awareness. And I've relied on social media to get the word out on shows I'm working on or articles I've written. And but what I haven't done is used it as a way to get a date or, well, I would say show off my body, but nobody needs to see it. Nobody wants to see it. Nobody needs to see it. I think some people are using it for a level of attention and validation that wears thin after a little while. I think if you use it correctly and if you use it with caution and consideration, I think it can be a great thing. But I also think it's using it as a platform for hate, obviously. And I'm sorry, but hate speech is not an opposing point of view or an opinion. It's just hate speech. And so I think people who use it to degrade or insult or hate on others, it's destructive. And so I think, like anything, there are good sides and bad sides to any kind of platform. And so I think I think people need to use it cautiously and wisely. And not everyone does, but I think if it's done right, it can be a really wonderful thing. It can bring people together. And that was a long answer. Sorry.
I agree with you 100%. Because people act like cowards. They're going to say whatever. For an example, people say to me, oh, your show sucks. Or you're reaching out to the wrong people. And they would say the most bizarre, awkward things to me. But they would never say it to their face. You would never say, you're an asshole or your show's a disgrace, because people feel empowered from being behind technology.
The anonymity.
Like there's like a shield. Mm-hmm. What about you, Kat? What do you think?
Yeah, I feel like Brian hit a lot of. I think Brian hit a lot of points way more eloquently than I could. I will say, particularly in the time that we're in right now, where live performance is dead. Like everything's been canceled. Myself and almost like all of my friends have lost like significant chunks of our income over the last few months because of COVID-19. social media has become a really important thing for us. One, because like it's weird not making something right now. So I think there are a lot of us who are just like, we're scared, but like, let's just like make some things together and put it out in front of an audience. So it helps us feel a little bit more whole as artists. I think that right now I produce for an organization called the Asian Arts Initiative. We're a 27-year-old multidisciplinary arts organization in the Chinatown, North Callow Hill neighborhood in Philadelphia. But we're pivoting a lot of our programming to social media, and so trying to figure out ways to connect with audiences authentically has been something that I've been like really invested in the last like month or so, now that live performance doesn't really exist anymore. And that's been big and scary. And so seeing social media as a way for that. Also looking at social media as a way to further mutual aid in this time, I think is really important. I'm super lucky in that I can be socially distanced and I can be quarantining myself, but there are so many frontline workers who can't be, so many people who like don't have enough savings to pay their rent, and utilizing social media as a way to level out all the social inequities that like our government is just hasn't done, because our government's stupid. Like, and like, that's something I'm okay having on record said, like, that I think is really beautiful. I think there's an element of like social media existing as a way to like further radicalize people, that you know, has the flip side of like radicalizing further right is not great. But I do think that there's been a lot of like political galvanization on the left that has been really lovely to see, and something that I don't think would have existed had social media not. And it's caused a lot of like really creative ways to get a message out briefly. Like, I think memes are one of the most effective means of communication, because you're able to get across like an ethos of something in like 2 lines and a funny image. And what an amazing way to like further a message. And those ways of communication wouldn't exist had social media not. And I think that's real dope.
No, I agree. Now, because this is a very special episode, and I do apologize because I have no filter. So when something pops in my head, I just blur it out. So if I said anything stupid, I do apologize. But for me, I try to make my show like Bill Maher, you know, where it's funny, where I'm catty, and where I just come off the handle. But I'm in the between the professional and sarcastic jackass line. But I'm more like also like Bill O'Reilly, where I'm straight to the point, look professional. So I'm in between those two. But I gave you guys an extra 13 minutes. Now we're going overtime. But I want to focus on the main message of the show, and then passing it over to you. You can ask me anything you want. But I just want to point this one out. Have you guys, besides me, obviously, have you guys ever worked with people with disabilities? And are you guys willing to work with anyone with or without disabilities in the future?
Absolutely. I've worked with people with disabilities in the past. I've worked with people with disabilities in the future. I think it's all about sharing human stories and helping us all achieve our goals. So absolutely.
What about you, Kat?
Yeah, likewise. I don't have too much more to add on that, but yes.
Actually, I do want to add one more thing, if I may. You know, because you're both producers, say someone with a learning disability wanted to follow in your footsteps, both of yours. You know, what would a word of wisdom be that you would give to them, and what challenge? Of course, there will always be challenges, but do you think they would be capable of pulling it off?
I think I do truly believe that all goals are achievable, and I think the advice that I would give to someone is the same advice I would give to anyone, which is really work hard and be nice. I think everything requires a lot of hard work and truthfully a lot of luck as well. Like there are a series of small miracles that happen in any project that are somewhat out of our control, whether it's television or stage or career. You know, I can't say that my successes were all me. I think there were a lot of wonderful people around me and a lot of circumstances that lined up to in a way that were out of my hands to help those things happen in the way that they did. But the one thing, the theme, the thread that I think, at least for me, and that I like to surround myself with, is people who work really hard and who are really nice, because it is this business that the three of us are in is not an easy one, but it can be incredible. When it's good, it's great. And when you pull something off that you believe in, it's incredibly rewarding. But I think as I get older, and I think as a lot of people in the business get older, you realize that you just want to work with good people, and surround yourself with good people. And I think that could be true of any business, but I think in my long and short of it is, yes, there's so many goals are achievable, and if you work hard and are nice to other people, they will want to work with you and they will want to help you succeed and achieve the things that you want to achieve. So that's my mantra that I tell myself.
Thank you, Kat. Your turn, and I'm passing the show over to you guys.
Yeah. I mean, I started the interview with this, but it's still one of the things that is like very true to me is like theater's moving shit around and moving shit back. And once you start doing it for a while, it's a very grounding thing because it helps. I think so often we get really caught up in a grind of like, oh my God, this thing is so pressing. If I don't get this person this coffee at this time, or if I don't get the set delivered at this time, then everything's going to fall apart. And reminding myself of that phrase is a really helpful thing of like, right, art is really important. Art is going to save the world, but it's going to save the world at a slow and measured pace, not necessarily like I'm a heart surgeon, I have my hands in someone's chest. So just continuing to diligently move things around and move them back. And I think the other piece of advice I would give is just like, listen to the community around you. It's really okay to say when you don't know something. I would much rather work with somebody who asks a question when they need to ask a question than somebody who doesn't ask a question and tries to do something and does it wrong.
No, I can relate. Now, for me, when I'm a horrible test taker. So what I do now is what I did when I was a kid is, can someone read me the question? And after they read it, and I still don't understand, I'm like a deer in the headlights. Like, can you give me an example, or can you show me? And I purposely try to break it down and make it as simple as possible. Of course, that pisses some people off. It's like, I don't have the time to babysit, but you want the job done right. So by taking the time to be patient, and that's what it comes down to. A little patience goes a long way.
Agree.
With that being said, I'm going to pass the show over to you guys. Was there anything you guys wanted to ask each other? Was there anything you wanted to promote? Was the last 5 minutes left?
No, other than that, it's been such a pleasure to hear the two of you and what your takes are on all these different issues. I don't have any questions or anything I necessarily want to push out there other than thank you, a note of gratitude for having me on your show.
No, absolutely. What about you, Kat?
Yeah, I don't have any questions, but thank you so much, Keith. It was such a pleasure to like answer your questions, and Brian, it's a pleasure to get to know you. Yeah.
You too.
Now, the last thing I do want to do while wrapping up is I do have a couple questions for you guys off the air, but I know you guys have other things to do, so let's just focus on this real fast. How can people follow you on social media? Are you guys on Twitter, Instagram? And when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, and you can be completely brutally honest, when I first approached you to be a guest on my talk show, what was your first reaction? What made you say yes? And how do you feel now? Would you recommend it?
Kat, you go ahead.
Yeah, cool. My social media is actually like pretty private, so I'm not going to share it. But if you want to follow the companies that I'm working for right now, I'm the creative director of a group called Philadelphia Asian Performing Artists. We can be found on Instagram at Philly Asian Performing Artists. That's it. And then I'm the public programs producer for the Asian Arts Initiative, which can be found on Instagram at AAI Philly. But yeah, I think when I first got your email, Keith, I think my first thought was just like, how does this person know who I am? Because I tend to try to function in a way that I fly under the radar a lot of places. I prefer it that way. And then secondly, I was like, great, this sounds like a lovely mission. I'm down. I'm down, and this was really lovely, and I would recommend it to anyone. Yeah.
As for me, I'm on all the platforms as Brian Balthazar. I can't promise that they're very entertaining, but they're there. Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. I only have room in my life for 3. I can't be TikToking. I'm not. No one wants to see me dance. But from what I hear, and as far as it goes with the request, I think we first connected on LinkedIn. And I got a message on LinkedIn. I will be honest, I don't go on LinkedIn very often. And often the request I get on LinkedIn is like, would you like to work for my petroleum company as a arbiter of some deal? And I'm like, well, this person, what in my profile indicates that I should be negotiating deals for your petroleum company? I don't understand. So I often, truthfully, I don't always read LinkedIn messages with a great amount of intense attentiveness. So it took us a while to actually connect, and also because I have the mental attention span of the turkey. If I see something shiny over here, I look over there and forget what I was just looking at. So eventually I was like, yes, I always wanted to do it. It was a matter of scheduling and getting ourselves at the same place at the same time. So of course it's such a pleasure, and I love to be, I'm not always great at talking about myself. I feel oddly uncomfortable with talking about myself, but I like talking to other people. So that was an appealing invitation. So and of course I'm glad I did it, and I would recommend it highly to anyone.
No, absolutely. Now wrapping up her talk show, it was a real honor, privilege to have both of you as a guest, and I extend my hand to you guys in friendship, and I'm looking forward to part 2 down the road. I just want to say thank you for your time, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
So thanks so much, Keith. Good to meet you, Brian.
You too.
Yeah.
Michelle Doherty.
Hey, I'm Laura Menino.
Hi, I'm Deborah Jensen.
I'm Linda Collins.
Hi, I'm Marissa Joy Davis.
This is Michelle Wong.
I'm Nancy Rose.
My name is Brandy Hunt. And
hello, my name is Raven Wynn.
Hi there, my name is Giovanna Vidal.
Hi, I'm Monica Thomas.
Hi, I'm Paisley Blackburn.
I'm Ashley Burgess.
Hi, my name is Jeanette Abney.
Hi, I'm Sharon Spank.
Hey, this is Samantha Moore.
Hi, I'm Melody Jones.
Hi, my name is Becky Yee.
Hi, you're watching the Keith Andrew Network.